Donald Trump just completely lost it. 47 members of Congress, including 16 from his own party, have now formally demanded his resignation. And this is not some symbolic protest or empty political stunt. This is a bipartisan revolt sparked by a leaked memo so damaging that even Trump's most loyal defenders could not stay quiet, with Republican committee chairs publicly breaking ranks and calling on their own president to step down. When something like this happens, you know something seismic just went off in Washington. And what triggered this unprecedented move was a leaked document alleging interference with military operations for personal political benefit while sensitive national security missions were underway. According to sources who reviewed the memo, personal directives were issued to delay key defense authorizations because certain commanders had not publicly endorsed specific policies. This is not another routine controversy or partisan fight. This involves members of the president's own party joining opposition lawmakers to openly demand that a sitting president resign. And when lawmakers cross party lines to make a move like this, it signals that something enormous has just exploded. It is honestly difficult to believe we are watching elected officials from both parties unite against a president in a way we have not seen since Watergate. Here is what has been unfolding behind the scenes. Tensions in Washington have been rising for months as relationships with Congress deteriorated over budget battles, executive overreach, and repeated clashes with military leadership. But according to reporting from December 28th, everything changed when a classified memo was leaked to several congressional committees showing direct interference in Pentagon operations. The memo, dated 3 weeks earlier, allegedly shows orders were given to delay critical military authorizations until certain generals agreed to appear at campaign events supporting a political agenda. This was not about policy disagreements or standard civil-military relations. This was about using national defense as leverage for political theater. Here is where things crossed a line. When members of the House Armed Services Committee reviewed the memo inside a secure facility, they immediately recognized it as conduct that could not be ignored. And let's be clear for a moment. Calls for a president to resign are extraordinarily rare. They do not happen over policy disputes or ideological differences. They happen when lawmakers believe a president has fundamentally violated the oath of office. Now here is where it gets even more serious. According to multiple sources, this is what happened next. On December 27th, a bipartisan group of lawmakers held an emergency closed-door meeting after reviewing the leaked classified memo. The meeting included 31 Democrats and 16 Republicans. According to sources who spoke with reporters, a Republican congressman who chairs the House Foreign Affairs Committee told colleagues that the evidence was undeniable and that staying silent would make them complicit. A Democratic lawmaker, the ranking member on armed services, described the memo's contents as a clear abuse of power that endangered national security. By the end of the 3-hour meeting, the group drafted a formal letter demanding immediate resignation. The letter, released publicly on December 28th, states that the president violated constitutional duties as commander-in-chief by subordinating national defense to personal political goals. Reporters who obtained the full text described the language as unusually blunt. It accuses the administration of putting American lives at risk, undermining military readiness, and betraying the trust of service members who rely on civilian leadership to act in the national interest rather than for personal gain. What happened next shocked even seasoned observers. When the memo was reviewed in the secure facility, even some of Trump's most loyal allies could not defend what they saw. A Republican committee chairman who had defended the president through every prior controversy stood on the House floor and read the resignation demand himself. That was the moment it became clear this was not just another scandal. According to multiple reporters present, his voice shook as he read the letter aloud. He said that as a military veteran and someone who had supported the president, he could not remain silent when evidence showed the commander-in-chief placing politics above the safety of American troops. That moment sent shockwaves through Washington because it changed the entire political dynamic. When a Republican committee chair publicly breaks with a president from his own party, it signals that the evidence is so damaging that political survival now depends on distancing yourself rather than defending the indefensible. Claims of a partisan witch hunt collapse when members of the president's own party lead the push for accountability. This is not the first time pressure has mounted for a president to resign over abuse of power. Think back to Richard Nixon after the Saturday Night Massacre, when he fired the special prosecutor investigating Watergate. Republican senators began privately telling Nixon he had lost their support. Eventually, senior GOP leaders went to the White House and told him he could not survive impeachment. Nixon resigned days later. Then there was Bill Clinton during the Lewinsky scandal. While many lawmakers called for his resignation, it never gained bipartisan traction because Clinton's misconduct, while serious, did not directly involve national security decisions. Democrats viewed those efforts as partisan overreach, and during the first impeachment tied to Ukraine, some Republicans privately expressed concern but publicly held the line. No one broke ranks in public. The party stayed unified, even as evidence troubled many observers. This time looks different. This time, Republicans are openly joining the call for resignation. The pattern is clear. When presidents cross lines that put national security at risk, there comes a point where even party loyalty breaks down. And that brings us to the central question. What exactly was allegedly done that produced this unprecedented response? Let's walk through it carefully. According to legal and military experts who reviewed the leaked memo, the actions described violate core principles of civil-military relations. The document reportedly shows that personal calls were made instructing contacts at the United States Department of Defense to delay authorization for 3 separate military operations. These were not routine matters. Sources familiar with the missions say they involved time-sensitive intelligence collection and force protection measures in hostile regions. Here is the most alarming part. The memo allegedly includes direct language stating that these authorizations should be withheld until specific generals agreed to appear at campaign events and publicly endorse leadership. This was not a disagreement over military strategy. It was about deliberately delaying operations as leverage to extract political support from senior commanders. And this is where the implications become terrifying. This is not about a single memo or one decision. If a president can hold military operations hostage until generals agree to campaign appearances, then national defense becomes a bargaining tool for political spectacle. Once that precedent exists, it cannot be undone. This puts Republicans in Congress in an impossible position. On one side, they face a base that remains intensely loyal and views any criticism as betrayal. That pressure pushes them toward defending, regardless of evidence, attacking the leak as illegal, and framing the story as a conspiracy. On the other side, they are being asked to justify conduct that their own committee chairs say endangered American lives for political gain. They would have to explain to military families why readiness should depend on generals providing campaign endorsements. The problem is there is no workable defense. Either the memo accurately reflects what happened, which is indefensible, or the memo is fabricated, which would require believing that multiple congressional leaders from both parties are lying about what they reviewed in a secure facility. Legal and political analysts say this resembles a constitutional crisis unfolding in slow motion. A Harvard law professor and former assistant attorney general appeared on national news and explained that if the allegations are true, they represent violations of fundamental duties as commander-in-chief. He noted that while the Constitution grants broad authority over military operations, that authority must be used in the national interest, not for personal political advantage. A former federal prosecutor added that the conduct could also violate federal laws that prohibit using government resources for campaign purposes. Delaying military operations to extract political endorsements from generals is not just an abuse of power, it may cross into criminal territory. Even a conservative legal scholar who has often defended expansive executive authority acknowledged the severity of the allegations. He said that although presidents have wide discretion in military matters, using operational delays as political leverage crosses a constitutional boundary that should alarm people across the political spectrum. So let's look at what this could mean, because this is not just a political embarrassment. It carries serious consequences on multiple fronts. First is the immediate political impact. There is now a formal bipartisan demand for resignation that includes members of the president's own party. While such demands have no legal force, they carry enormous symbolic weight. They signal to other Republicans that breaking ranks is not only acceptable, but may be necessary for political survival. Before this letter, many Republicans feared criticism would end their careers. Now they have cover from respected party figures. That opens the door to a cascading effect, where more lawmakers feel empowered to speak out. Second, this creates a major problem in relations with the military. Active duty personnel and veterans are watching civilian leaders allegedly turn military operations into political bargaining chips. According to a poll conducted after the controversy broke, 68% of active duty service members said they disapproved of using operational delays for political purposes. That is a striking figure for an administration that has portrayed itself as strongly pro-military. Looking ahead, this reshapes the political terrain for upcoming elections. Republican candidates will now be asked whether they support a president accused of putting troops at risk for political gain. Campaign ads are already being produced featuring military families asking why accountability is being avoided. This creates a wedge issue that cuts across normal partisan lines because national security and troop welfare traditionally command bipartisan respect. But beyond short-term politics, this goes to fundamental constitutional principles. The role of the president as commander-in-chief carries enormous responsibility. It requires placing national defense above personal interest. It demands that operational decisions be driven by military necessity, not campaign calculations. If a president can delay missions to extract loyalty from generals, civilian control of the military becomes corrupted. That outcome would be catastrophic. This entire situation has sent Republican leadership into panic mode. According to reporting, senior Republicans held emergency conference calls trying to decide how to respond. Some argued they should focus on condemning the leak itself, claiming classified information should never have been disclosed. Others insisted that regardless of how the memo became public, the substance of the allegations demanded a response. The party is splintering in real time over whether loyalty should outweigh the duty to confront serious national security concerns. At the same time, core supporters are furious with Republicans who signed the resignation letter. According to monitoring, social media is flooded with demands to primary every Republican who broke ranks. They are being labeled traitors and deep state collaborators. To the base, this is the ultimate betrayal, proof that even Republicans cannot be trusted to stand firm against perceived enemies. Things escalated even further when Donald Trump himself fired back with a series of posts from the White House. He called the resignation demand a hoax and a witch hunt driven by Democrats and weak Republicans. He claimed the memo was fabricated by intelligence agencies trying to sabotage him. He explicitly named several Republican lawmakers who signed the letter and branded them cowards and sellouts who would face political consequences. And here is what makes this situation even more staggering. The president's own response essentially confirmed the core problem. Instead of directly addressing the allegations, the reaction was pure rage and personal attacks against the Republicans who broke ranks. When a defense strategy focuses on attacking the people raising concerns rather than challenging the evidence itself, the argument has already collapsed. Legal experts quickly pointed out that lashing out at members of Congress for exercising constitutional oversight while also claiming the allegations are false creates a serious contradiction. If the claims are baseless, why the anger? That kind of defensive response often reinforces the gravity of the underlying accusations rather than weakening them. This goes far beyond one controversy. It raises a fundamental question about whether a president can use national defense as a tool for personal political advancement. If there are no consequences for allegedly delaying military operations to extract political loyalty, then national security becomes secondary to personal ambition. This is not just about one administration, it is about whether the presidency itself has any meaningful limits when it comes to the commander-in-chief role. So here is where things stand. A bipartisan group of 47 members of Congress has formally demanded resignation after reviewing evidence of alleged interference with military operations for political gain. This is no longer just partisan fighting. It is about whether we accept a system where military actions can be paused until generals provide campaign endorsements. When Republican committee chairs publicly break with a president from their own party over national security concerns, we have entered unprecedented territory. If there are no consequences, a dangerous precedent is set. It would signal that a commander-in-chief can treat military readiness as a bargaining chip for personal political benefit. That is why this moment matters so deeply. Keep watching this closely. More Republicans are reportedly reviewing the classified memo and weighing whether to add their names to the resignation demand. Legal teams are threatening to focus on investigating the leak itself rather than addressing the substance of the allegations, and military families across the country are paying attention to see whether their representatives will put national defense above political loyalty. This is where we are right now. 47 elected officials have risked their careers to say a sitting president violated his oath. Military families are watching to see whether their safety matters more than party allegiance. And additional Republicans are reportedly examining that memo at this very moment, deciding whether to step forward. This is not another news cycle that will quietly fade. This is a constitutional crisis unfolding in real time. What happens next will determine whether the office of Commander-in-Chief has real limits or none at all. The evidence is out. The demand has been made. Now the question is whether accountability still means anything in Washington. The stakes have never been higher, the allegations have never been more serious, and the constitutional reckoning has never felt more immediate.